It's kind of funny, right? Like you see these people crushing it at the top of their game, in business, sports, whatever, and it's so easy to just, I don't know, focus on the shiny stuff,
Mhm.
the awards, the wins. But the story behind how they got there, it's usually way more complicated.
Yeah, for sure.
Often there's some real bumps in the road.
Absolutely.
Take James Clear, the author we're diving into today. His book, Atomic Habits, it's well, his whole journey really starts with this crazy intense moment.
Oh, yeah.
He gets hit in the face with a baseball bat in high school.
Wow.
And we're not talking just a glancing blow here. It's brutal. Broken nose, skull fractures, multiple, shattered eye sockets. He even ends up in a coma.
I know, right?
That's heavy.
Just trying to imagine going through something like that. It's hard to wrap your head around.
It really is. And it makes you think about how events like that, even his family's experience with his sister battling leukemia, which is another just incredibly challenging thing to go through these things, can either, I don't know, trap you, define you by what they take away.
Right.
Or they can be this, I don't know if lens is the right word, but they can become a way to understand resilience, the power of consistent effort. And that's really what we're seeing with James Clear.
Yeah, and that's what's so fascinating about this deep dive. It's not just about reviewing a book. It's about getting to the heart of these fundamental principles of change, of growth, that he discovered, that he applied in his own life, and that, honestly, they go way beyond just recovering from an injury.
They really do.
And for you, the learner, that's what we're here to unpack.
We're going to get into those core ideas of atomic habits and really break down how these habits, the tiny ones, the ones that honestly might feel almost insignificant when you're doing them, they actually can build up and compound into like seriously remarkable results over time. Think of this as like the cheat sheet to habit formation, right? We're giving you the distilled insights without having to read every single page yourself. It's about getting you well-informed, well-equipped to make real change in your own life, but without that feeling of, oh my God, this is too much, I can't even start.
That's a great way to put it. It's about removing those barriers and just focusing on what works. And one of the most powerful things Clear talks about, the real engine of this whole philosophy, is the idea of compounding.
Compounding, okay.
He uses this awesome analogy. Habits are like compound interest, but for self-improvement.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Just like with investing, right? You make these small, consistent contributions over time, and they start to grow exponentially. Well, it's the same with those small daily improvements. Just getting 1% better each day. It starts to add up in ways you wouldn't believe.
It's almost counterintuitive, isn't it? You think, okay, 1% better each day for a year, that's 365% better. But that's not how it works,
No.
right?
Right. That's where the magic of compounding comes in. Because those gains multiplying each other, you actually end up being, get this, something like 37 times better by the end of that year.
Wow.
It's wild, right?
That is wild, that kind of exponential growth. It's mind-blowing how those seemingly insignificant habits can become so powerful.
Exactly. And to really illustrate this, Clear uses this really vivid image, this analogy of an airplane flying from, say, Los Angeles to New York. Imagine the pilot just makes a tiny adjustment to the plane's heading, like a 3.5-degree shift southward.
Okay, so tiny shift, barely noticeable.
At the moment of takeoff, it's almost nothing.
Right.
But here's the thing. Over the course of that entire flight, across the whole continent,
That tiny change.
you don't end up in New York.
Yeah.
You're in Washington, D.C.
Right.
instead, hundreds of miles off course.
Whoa.
It's like, that's the power of those tiny adjustments, those habits that feel like, whatever, they can steer you towards completely different destinations in life.
Yeah, and I think that brings up this other really important idea that can be super tough, especially when we're talking about building new habits. It's the plateau of latent potential.
Oh, yeah. This one's crucial.
Like you start going to the gym, you commit to writing every day, and you're consistent, but
But nothing seems to be happening.
nothing. At least not what you expect, right? Weeks go by, maybe even months, and you're like, wait, where's the payoff? I'm putting in the work, but I'm not seeing any real change.
It can be so discouraging.
And that's where most people, they just give up.
Yep.
Because it feels like, okay, I've been doing this for weeks. Why am I not ripped? Why haven't I written a bestseller?
It's that instant gratification thing.
Yeah.
Our brains are wired for it.
Totally. But what Clear explains is that the work, the effort, it's not wasted. It's accumulating. It's happening beneath the surface.
Like potential energy waiting to be released.
Exactly. And it's only later, sometimes way later, that you break through that plateau and all that consistent work. Boom. the results show up.
It's like planting bamboo. Nothing seems to happen for ages, right? And then all of a sudden,
It shoots up like crazy. And so for knowing this, that there's this delay between the work and the results, that's huge for sticking with those new habits, especially because, yeah, we're so used to wanting to see those results right away.
absolutely. And that understanding leads really nicely into this next big idea from Clear. Focusing on systems, not just goals.
Okay, so this is huge, right? For so long, it's all been about setting these huge, ambitious goals and visualizing yourself achieving them. And Clear isn't saying goals are completely useless. Like, they do give you a direction, right?
Yeah.
But what he's really saying is that it's the systems, the processes, the routines you have in place, those are the things that actually drive progress.
That's the key. Systems over goals. Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Winners and losers, a lot of times, they have the same goals. Like in the business world, right? How many startups are there trying to become the next big thing?
Tons.
But only a handful actually make it. Same with athletes. And they're all aiming for gold. The difference isn't the goal, it's the systems, the training, the strategies, the daily grind. It's about understanding survivorship bias.
Survivorship bias.
Yeah, basically, we tend to just look at the success stories, assume that their initial goal was the magic ingredient, without considering all the others who had the same goal but didn't make it because their systems weren't as effective.
Got it. So survivorship bias is like you only see the winners, not all the people who tried.
And didn't have the right systems in place.
Exactly. And Clear also talks about how even if you do achieve a goal, it's often just a temporary fix if you don't change the underlying systems that led to needing that goal in the first place.
Oh, that's such a good point.
He gives this example of a messy room, right? You could set a goal to clean it up, and you might even do it. But if you don't change the habits that led to the mess in the first place, the clutter, the disorganization, you're just going to end up back where you started.
Right. You're treating the symptom, not the cause.
Exactly.
And I think it's important to add that focusing too much on goals can actually, it can be a downer. If your whole sense of happiness is tied to achieving this one specific outcome, then you're basically putting your life on hold until that happens.
They're not enjoying the journey.
Exactly. But if you focus on building a good system, you can find satisfaction in the process itself. Every time you engage with that system, you feel good. You feel a sense of accomplishment.
So, even if you haven't finished writing the whole book, you can still feel good about sticking to your writing schedule. Exactly.
Or if you're training for a marathon.
It's not just about crossing the finish line.
Right. It's about those early morning runs, the discipline, the feeling of getting stronger. And that's another thing Clear points out. Goal-oriented thinking can lead to this yo-yo effect.
Right.
Imagine that person training for the marathon. They push themselves so hard, they achieve their goal, and then what?
They stop.
Often, yeah. The motivation is gone because the goal is achieved. That consistent system that got them there, it just disappears.
Wow.
And that's where this concept of atomic habits comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Clear defines them as these small, super easy to do routines or practices that honestly, on their own, they might seem insignificant. But
there's a but?
They're the building blocks of those effective systems.
Yeah.
And through the power of compounding, like we talked about, they become massively powerful over time. They're small in scale, but they have huge potential.
So it's not about making these huge drastic changes, right?
Right.
It's about these tiny tweaks, little habits that are easy to start, easy to keep doing, and over time, big change.
That's the idea.
I like it. Now, to actually build these atomic habits, Clear breaks down behavior change into 3 layers.
3 layers, okay.
The first one is outcomes. This is the most basic level, right? It's about what you get, losing weight, writing a book, whatever.
Makes sense.
Then you have processes, the second layer. This is about what you do, the actions you take. So your exercise routine, your writing schedule.
Okay, so outcomes are the what? Processes are the how?
Yeah, something like that.
And what's the third layer?
The third layer. This is the deepest one, and Clear argues it's the most impactful. It's identity, what you believe about yourself.
Identity.
It's your values, your self-image, how you see yourself in the world.
So it's not just about doing the things, it's about who are you at your core?
Exactly. And the big takeaway here is that real lasting change, the kind that sticks, it happens when you focus on this level of identity. It's about becoming the type of person who does those things naturally, not just trying to force yourself to do them.
So, it's not just about reading a certain number of books.
Right.
It's about becoming a reader.
Exactly. Or running a marathon. It's about becoming a runner.
I see, yeah.
Clear tells this great story about himself. He had this lifelong habit of biting his nails. Drove him crazy.
I feel that.
But one day, he just decides, I'm the type of person who takes pride in taking care of their nails. And just like that, the nail biting stops.
No way. Just from changing how he thought about himself.
Yep. It wasn't willpower or anything like that. It was about his actions being in line with how he saw himself.
Huh. That's pretty powerful.
It is. And what's cool is that this sense of identity, you're not born with it. It actually comes from your habits, the things you do over and over.
Interesting.
Every time you do something, it's like you're casting a vote for the kind of person you want to be.
Yeah.
Making your bed every day. You're voting for organized person, writing every day, creative person, exercising regularly, someone who values their health.
So it's like your actions are shaping your identity, and then your identity reinforces your actions.
Exactly. It's this feedback loop. And so the real goal becomes less about chasing a specific outcome and more about becoming that kind of person you want to be. It's about letting your values, your principles, your desired identity, that becomes the driving force behind your habits.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all fits together. Now, how do we actually put this into practice?
Well, that's where Clear's 4 laws of behavior change come in. Think of these as like the practical tools, the levers you can pull to make good habits easier and bad habits harder.
A roadmap for change.
Exactly. And the first law is make it obvious. To get this, we first got to talk about the habit loop. Clear breaks it down into 4 parts. Cue, craving, response, and reward. Every habit starts with a cue. And a lot of times, we're not even aware of these cues. They're just happening in the background.
So step 1 is awareness.
Yep. You got to shine a light on those cues that are triggering both the good and the bad habits. Clear suggests using a habit scorecard. Just write down every single habit you do in a typical day.
Like a habit inventory.
Exactly. Once you see those cues clearly, the first law, make it obvious, gives you some cool strategies for setting up clear triggers for the good stuff. One of the best is implementation intentions. Basically, you're making a very specific statement to yourself. I will behavior at time and location.
Okay, give me an example.
I will go for a 30-minute walk at 7 a.m. in my neighborhood, or I will spend 15 minutes learning Spanish at 6 p.m. at my desk. It's about creating that clear link between your intention and the specific time and place where the habit will happen.
So it's not just I'll exercise more, it's I'll do this specific thing at this specific time in this specific place.
Exactly. Makes it way more concrete.
Got it. What else?
Another good one is habit stacking. This is where you link a new habit to an existing one that you already do consistently. So it's like, after current habit, I will new habit. For example, after I make my coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute.
Oh, I like that.
You're basically piggybacking on the momentum of an existing routine.
Using what you already do to make it easier to add something new.
Exactly. And then there's the whole thing about designing your environment.
So this is about setting yourself up for success.
Totally. Make the cues for good habits super visible, easy to access. At the same time, you want to minimize or even get rid of the cues that trigger your bad habits. Clear talks about this study in the Netherlands where they just gave people visual feedback on their energy use. Just making the cue more obvious led to people using less energy.
So just seeing it made a difference.
Big difference. And this gets to the heart of what psychologist Kurt Lewin said: behavior is a function of the person in their environment.
Behavior is a function of the person in their environment.
Yeah, it's like a little equation. B equals F of P comma E.
So what's that mean in plain English?
It means that our actions, our behaviors, they're influenced by both who we are and the world around us.
So if you surround yourself with, I don't know, healthy snacks instead of junk food, you're more likely to make healthier choices.
Exactly. Or having a dedicated workspace, a place where you only work and don't get distracted by other stuff.
Creating those environmental cues makes a lot of sense.
It does, right. Okay, moving on to the second law. Make it attractive. This one gets into the whole idea of craving, that feeling of wanting something, anticipating a reward. That's what motivates us to take action.
So how do we make those good habits more appealing?
Well, the problem is we live in a world of what Clear calls supernormal stimuli. Basically, they're these exaggerated versions of things that are naturally attractive to us, and they trigger like these mega responses in our brains way stronger than natural rewards.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Think processed foods. They're engineered to hit that sweet spot of salt, sugar, and fat that our brains just go crazy for. Or social media, right? That constant stream of engaging, addictive content. It's designed to keep you hooked.
It's true. I'm definitely guilty of spending way too much time scrolling. So how do we compete with that? How do we make the habits we want more appealing?
One technique Clear suggests is temptation bundling. This is where you link something you need to do with something you want to do. So you could, for example, only allow yourself to watch your favorite TV show while you're working out.
Oh, I actually do that sometimes.
Or you only listen to that really awesome podcast you love while you're cleaning the house.
Okay, that's pretty clever.
Anything else?
Social norms. They play a surprisingly big role in what we find attractive. We tend to copy the habits of people we're close to, like our friends and family, but also the habits of the majority, like what seems normal in a particular group, and the habits of those we admire or see as powerful.
So if you want to develop a certain habit, it helps to be around people who are already doing that thing.
Exactly. Clear even mentions a study that showed a link between people becoming obese and their friends becoming obese.
Wow, social pressure is real.
It is. So yeah, finding a community or a group where your desired behavior is the norm, that can make a huge difference.
I hadn't thought about it that way, but it makes sense. And then finally, there's the power of reframing. This is all about consciously shifting your perspective on a habit, focusing on the positive instead of the negative. So instead of thinking, oh, I have to go to the gym, you could think, I get to move my body, I get to feel energized, this is good for me.
Yeah, it's like choosing to see the benefit instead of the chore.
Exactly. And Clear even talks about a book that helps smokers quit by reframing their cravings. It helps them see that smoking actually doesn't give them any real pleasure.
You have to check that out.
It's pretty fascinating. Okay, so the third law. You ready for this?
Hear me.
Make it easy. Clear emphasizes what he calls the law of least effort. Basically, humans are wired to take the path of least resistance.
Makes sense. We're all kind of lazy at heart.
Yeah, something like that. And that's why it's so important to understand the difference between motion and action. Motion is all the planning, the research, the thinking about doing something.
Okay, so motion is like brainstorming ideas for that book you want to write.
Yep. Or researching different workout routines. Action is actually doing the thing, writing the words, doing the workout. It's really easy to get stuck in motion because it feels like you're making progress.
But you're not actually...
The doing the thing.
Right. So how do we move from motion to action?
By making it as easy as possible to take action, Clear talks about priming your environment. Basically, you're setting yourself up for success.
So lay out your workout clothes the night before.
Yep. Have healthy snacks ready to go. Put that book you want to read right on your nightstand.
Make it impossible to ignore.
Totally. And then there's the 2-minute rule. This is super helpful. You break down your habits into these tiny 2-minute chunks. So read for 30 minutes becomes read 1 page.
Go for a run become...
Put on my running shoes.
Yeah.
The idea is to make the first step so ridiculously easy that you can't say no. And then, once you start...
You're more likely to keep going.
Exactly. And there's also the strategy of automating good habits, like setting up those automatic transfers to your savings account or unsubscribing from all those distracting email lists.
Those one-time actions that make it easier to stay on track in the long run.
Exactly. And then, on the flip side, if you want to break a bad habit, you want to increase friction, make it harder to do the thing. Commitment devices are great for this. Like Victor Hugo, the writer, he used to lock away his clothes so he couldn't go out and would be forced to write.
Wow, that's commitment.
It is. Or you could delete social media apps from your phone.
Ooh, that's a tough one. But effective.
Very effective. And Clear also points out the importance of what he calls decisive moments. These are like small choices that have this ripple effect on your future habits. Like choosing to cook dinner instead of ordering takeout, that's a decisive moment. It sets you up for a healthier meal and maybe even a healthier week.
It's about those small choices that set the tone for bigger patterns.
Exactly. All right, ready for the fourth law?
Bring it on.
This one's all about making it satisfying. Clear explains that our brains are wired for instant gratification. It's like leftover from our ancient ancestors when rewards and threats were usually right in front of them.
We haven't quite caught up to modern time.
Nope. And that's why the long-term consequences of bad habits often don't faze us. The immediate reward is too strong. Like smoking provides instant stress relief, even though you know it's bad for you in the long run. Same with overeating instant pleasure, but eventual weight gain.
It's a tricky balance.
It is. So to build good habits, we need to make them satisfying in the moment. One way to do this is with reinforcement. You give yourself a little reward after completing a good habit.
So, like, if you're trying to cut back on eating out.
You could put $5 in a fun money jar every time you resist the urge to order takeout.
Oh, I like that. Rewards.
Another powerful tool is habit tracking. Just measuring your progress and seeing that visual record, it can be super motivating.
Like checking things off a list.
Exactly. There's something about seeing a chain of completed habits, you don't want to break it. But Clear warns about tracking the wrong things. He talks about Goodhart's law.
Goodhart's law.
Yeah, basically it says that when you make a measure into a target, it stops being a good measure.
So, like, if you focus only on tracking how many hours you work,
Yeah.
you might just end up working longer, even if you're not actually being productive.
Exactly. Quality over quantity. And when it comes to breaking bad habits, you can make doing nothing more enjoyable by visualizing the benefits of not doing the thing.
So imagine the money you'll save by not buying that thing you don't need.
Yep. Or the extra energy you'll have by not eating that sugary snack. You can also use accountability partners or habit contracts to make it less satisfying to break your commitments. Like, if you tell a friend you're going to go to the gym, you're more likely to follow through.
Because you don't want to let them down.
Or face the consequences of breaking your agreement. Now, Clear also talks about some more advanced strategies for people who really want to take their habit building to the next level. Oh, like what?
He gets into the whole talent thing. Basically, he's saying that while genes do play a role.
Like, some people are naturally predisposed to be good at certain things.
Yeah. But ultimately, habits are the most important factor.
So you can be naturally talented, but if you don't put in the work,
Yeah.
you're not going to reach your full potential. And it's easier to succeed when your habits are aligned with your natural strengths and interests.
Makes sense.
He also talks about something called the Goldilocks rule.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
The idea is that we're most motivated when we face challenges that are just slightly beyond our current ability, like
Oh.
about 4% beyond what we can do comfortably. It keeps us engaged, but not overwhelmed.
So it's about finding that sweet spot.
Exactly. Not too easy, not too hard. And then there's the issue of boredom. It's a big threat to long-term habit maintenance.
Boredom. Yeah, I can see that.
You got to find ways to keep things fresh and engaging. Clear says that real pros, no matter what field they're in, they show up and do the work even when they don't feel like it. Discipline. He also talks about a potential downside of habits. Complacency.
Oh, interesting. So
Yeah.
habits can be bad.
Well, not inherently, but when good habits become automatic, we can start to zone out and, little mistakes can creep in, or we can hit a plateau.
So what's the antidote to that?
Constant reflection and review. Clear mentions the LA Lakers Career Best Effort program. Basically, players would focus on improving just a little bit each season. He also talks about his own annual review process, where he looks back on the past year and makes adjustments.
It's like a progress check?
Exactly, making sure you're still on track. And finally, he talks about the link between desire and pleasure. Desire is what gets us started, right? But it's that feeling of pleasure or satisfaction afterwards that makes us want to keep doing the habit.
Makes it stick.
Exactly. So to wrap up, for you, the learner, here are the big takeaways from our deep dive into atomic habits. Small habits, even the ones that seem tiny and insignificant, they add up to huge results over time.
It's the compound effect. The compound effect. And it's way more important to focus on building solid systems than just chasing specific goals.
Systems over goals.
And real lasting change. It comes from changing your identity, becoming the kind of person who embodies those habits.
An inside-out approach.
It is. And Clear's 4 laws of behavior change make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. They give you this practical framework for actually making those changes.
Okay, so I'm thinking, what's one small habit I can start right now based on all of this?
Yeah, that's a great question to ask yourself. What identity do you want to reinforce? And what little change can you make in your environment to make starting that habit easier?
Some really good food for thought.
And if you want to go even deeper, James Clear has tons of great resources on his website and in his newsletter. It's all about those atomic steps, the small changes that add up to big transformations.
Love it. Me too.